In the art of living wisely, there is a truth that reveals itself only after enough seasons have passed. Not every hand extended in friendship is meant to lift you. Some are reaching for something of their own. Have you ever felt the pull of someone who seemed to understand you instantly, only to wonder later if that understanding was observation or calculation? That is not paranoia. That is pattern recognition. The real danger in human relationships is not always the loud conflict or the obvious betrayal. It is the quiet erosion that happens when we misjudge character and allow the wrong people too close. Think about it. If these reflections stir something in you, stay with me until the end. The fifth type carries a lesson that hits closest to home for many of us, one about self-mastery and the long game of life. If you find value in exploring the hidden laws that govern people and timing, I invite you to subscribe to Gwiguzi Strategic Wisdom and walk this path together. Welcome back to Gwiguzi Strategic Wisdom. I'm David Welbeck, the writer behind this video. Today, we're turning our attention to 5 types of people you should be careful getting close to. Not out of fear, but out of a clear-eyed respect for human nature, its strengths, its weaknesses, and the strategies that shape every interaction. Let's begin with the first type, those who offer praise too freely and too soon. There is an old strategic insight that words can be sharper than blades because they shape minds before actions ever unfold. In modern life, this appears as the person who meets you and immediately begins layering on compliments. Your insight, your style, your potential, but your very essence. It feels warm. It feels validating. And that is precisely the point. This is not genuine admiration. It is a calculated opening move. The psychology behind it is rooted deep in our instincts. We are drawn to those who make us feel seen and valued. It lowers our guard. It creates a subtle sense of debt. For the flatterer, it is a way to gain entry, to build rapid rapport without earning it through time or shared experience. You see it in the workplace, where a new colleague praises your ideas in meetings with such enthusiasm that you start sharing more of your thinking with them. Or in social circles, where someone new to your group singles you out with kind words that make you feel special. In budding personal relationships, it can feel like instant chemistry. But look at reality for what it is. True respect grows slowly, tested by time and circumstance. Excessive praise without the weight of real understanding is often a mask for self-interest. Whether it is to extract information, favors, or simply to position themselves favorably in your eyes. This is where most people get it wrong. They confuse the pleasant sensation of flattery with the steady foundation of sincere regard. The consequence unfolds quietly. You open doors you might not have otherwise. You share plans, vulnerabilities, opportunities, and then, when the praise serves its purpose, or when you no longer provide value, the tone shifts. Suddenly, the compliments turn to subtle suggestions, requests, or even criticisms disguised as concern. I recall a time early in my career when I encountered someone like this at an industry event. They were eloquent and attentive, telling me how my approach to a certain problem was revolutionary. Over the following weeks, our conversations deepened. I found myself confiding challenges I was facing on a project. It felt good to have such a supportive ear. Then came the ask, a recommendation that would stretch my professional boundaries. When I declined, the warmth evaporated almost overnight. The lesson stayed with me. Flattery is easy to give when the cost is low. Discernment costs more, but it protects what matters. The wise person does not reject kindness. They simply learn to weigh it against time and consistency. Yet flattery is only one current in these waters. There is another type that operates through a different mechanism. Those who cannot guard what they are told. This second type reveals itself not in what they say to you, but in what they say about you to others. The person who listens intently when you share something personal, nodding with understanding, only to let it slip later in casual conversation, as if it were common knowledge. It is the friend who hears your private ambition and repeats it at the dinner table. It is the colleague who receives your confidence about a difficult situation and turns it into office gossip before the week is out. The ancient strategic mind understood that a loose tongue is not mere carelessness. It is a failure of self-control that exposes everyone around it to risk. In today's world, this pattern plays out in family gatherings, long-term friendships, and even marriage, where one unguarded word can shift the balance of trust forever. The psychology is simple yet profound. Some people crave the social currency that comes from seeming connected, informed, in the know. Sharing your secret gives them status in the moment, even if it costs you later. Do you see the turning point here? Closeness with this type does not strengthen you. It weakens the very ground beneath your feet. You begin to censor yourself, to hold back the parts of your inner life that need space to breathe. Or worse, you trust fully and watch your words return to you distorted, weaponized by someone who never intended harm but lacked the discipline to prevent it. The consequence is not dramatic. It is slower, more painful. Opportunities dry up because your private plans are no longer private. Relationships strain because people question your judgment. And you learn, often too late, that the cost of one misplaced confidence is years of guarded distance. It is not because they are malicious. It is because they are governed by impulse rather than restraint. And restraint, in human nature, is the rarest of disciplines. This is where so many people get it wrong. They mistake a ready ear for a safe one. The wise person does not close off entirely. They simply choose their moments and their people with the patience of someone who has seen how quickly a single leak can flood an entire life. These first two types teach us to watch the surface of words and the discipline behind them. But there is a third kind that moves beneath even those layers. Those who cannot wait for the right season, who push closeness before the ground is ready. But there is a third kind that moves beneath even those layers. Those who cannot wait for the right season, who push closeness before the ground is ready. Guiguzzi would have recognized this as the violation of timing itself. In the flow of human affairs, there is a natural rhythm to trust, just as there is to the turning of seasons. Force the bloom too early, and the flower withers before it ever truly opens. In our world today, this type appears as the person who, after only a handful of conversations, begins treating you like an old confidant. They share their deepest wounds, their most private ambitions, and then turn the same expectant gaze on you. "We're so connected," they say. "I feel like I can tell you anything." What they are really doing is accelerating the relationship to bypass the slow, necessary work of earning depth. The psychology here is rooted in anxiety and a hunger for certainty. Some people cannot tolerate the uncertainty of gradual connection. Their inner life is restless, driven by a need to lock in alliance before vulnerability can be tested by time. It feels intimate at first. It feels rare. But it is not patience at work. It is pressure. You encounter them in the early stages of a new friendship, in the delicate beginning of a romantic interest, or even in a professional mentorship that suddenly feels too personal, too fast. A colleague you've known for a month starts inviting you into late-night discussions about their failing marriage, then asks you to do the same. A new acquaintance at a community event unloads their family history over coffee and expects your own story in return, complete with the same level of exposure. This is where most people get it wrong. They mistake urgency for sincerity. They feel flattered by the rapid trust and begin matching it, revealing pieces of themselves they would normally protect. The real question is not whether the connection feels intense. The real question is whether it respects the natural pace of human bonding. The consequence arrives later, often quietly at first. You realize you have been pulled into a level of emotional entanglement you never chose. Boundaries you never drew are now being tested. When you begin to slow things down or create distance, the reaction can be sharp. Disappointment, guilt, even subtle resentment. You feel responsible for their openness, even though it was never invited at that speed. In marriage or long-term partnership, this pattern can manifest as someone who demands total transparency from day one, only to later weaponize what you shared in moments of conflict. In ambition-driven circles, it shows up as the associate who wants to co-own your dreams before they have proven they can carry their own. I once sat across from a man at a quiet bookstore cafe in a small coastal town where I was spending a few months writing. We had spoken only twice before, brief exchanges about books and the weather. On the third meeting, he leaned in and began recounting the collapse of his business, the betrayal by his partner, the weight of his regrets. Then he looked at me and said, "Now tell me what you're really afraid of in your own work." The air grew thick. I gave a measured answer and changed the subject. Within days, messages arrived asking why I was pulling away. The friendship that never had time to root was already withering under the weight of forced closeness. It is not because they lack feeling. It is because they lack the discipline to let feeling mature. And maturity, in relationships, is the difference between a bond that lasts and one that consumes. The wise person does not reject warmth. They simply protect the rhythm that allows real connection to form on its own terms. These patterns of words, of secrets, of timing prepare us for the fourth type, the one that feels the most convincing and therefore the most dangerous. Those who mirror you so perfectly that you forget they have a shape of their own. There is a strategic truth that the most effective deception does not contradict your reality. It reflects it back to you with just enough polish to seem ideal. In modern life, this appears as the person who seems to share your values, your humor, your quiet frustrations with the world, your unspoken hopes. They listen, then echo your thoughts back in language so aligned it feels like fate has finally delivered a true companion. I've never met anyone who sees it the way I do, you think. And that is exactly the mechanism at work. The psychology is subtle and powerful. Human beings are wired to trust similarity. When someone mirrors our inner life, our defenses lower because it feels safe, familiar, almost predestined. Yet for this type, the mirroring is often a learned strategy rather than a natural alignment. They adapt, just not because they are empty, but because adaptability grants them entry, influence, and eventually leverage. You see it clearest in social competition, in the slow build of a professional network, or in the charged atmosphere of new romance. A person joins your circle, and within weeks they have adopted your cadence of speech, your stance on politics or art, even the small habits you never noticed you had. At work, they champion the same causes you do and criticize the same inefficiencies, until the moment their own advancement requires a different position. In friendship, they become the echo chamber you didn't know you needed, validating every slight you feel and every ambition you hold. This is where most people get it wrong. They confuse reflection with resonance. True connection allows for difference. It is not threatened by it. The mirrored version offers no friction, no challenge, no independent character to test against. And without that test, there is no real depth. The consequence is one of the quietest, yet most disorienting. Over time, you begin to lose your own outline. You start measuring your thoughts against theirs, because theirs have become so familiar. Then one day, the mirror shifts. The same person who once finished your sentences now finishes your opportunities, perhaps by quietly aligning with someone else who offers them more. Or the relationship ends, and you realize you never truly knew them. You only knew the version of yourself they chose to reflect back. The real danger is not that they are evil. It is that their adaptability makes sincerity itself feel uncertain. You begin to question every connection. She's wondering who is real and who is performing. The wise person does not become cynical. They simply learn to watch for the moment when the mirror stops reflecting and starts refracting. When the other person's own ambitions, fears, or inconsistencies finally break through the perfect surface. We have moved through flattery, through loose tongues, through rushed timing, through polished reflection. Now we arrive at the fifth type, the one that touches the deepest nerve because it lives so close to our own vulnerabilities. Those who carry perpetual crisis as their primary language of connection. There is an ancient understanding that true strength does not advertise its wounds for sympathy. It carries them with composure until the moment action is required. In our daily lives, the fifth type does the opposite. Sees every interaction eventually circles back to their latest storm. The unfair boss, the unreliable family, the financial pressure that never quite resolves, the emotional weight they cannot seem to set down. They draw you in not with praise or mirroring, but with the quiet gravity of someone who needs you to witness their struggle. And because you are human, you respond with concern, with advice, with presence. The psychology runs deep. Some people have learned that their pain grants them attention, loyalty, even a form of power. By keeping the crisis alive, they keep others invested. It is not always conscious manipulation. Often it is simply a habit formed over years, a way of relating that has replaced genuine exchange. Yet the effect is the same. Closeness becomes a one-way current. You meet them in family ties that have grown heavy over time, in long friendships that began in shared hardship, or in the workplace where one colleague's endless emergencies slowly consume the emotional bandwidth of the team. In marriage or partnership, it can appear as the person whose difficulties always seem to eclipse your own, so that your role is forever the supporter, never the supported. This is where most people get it wrong. They mistake compassion for obligation. They believe that loyalty means absorbing the weight indefinitely. They do not notice the slow erosion of their own energy, their own clarity, their own capacity to pursue what matters to them. The consequence is not sudden betrayal, but gradual disappearance of your time, your focus, your sense of self. You wake up one day and realize you have been living someone else's storm for so long that your own life has grown quiet around you. Opportunities passed because you were busy helping. Relationships with others thinned because your attention was claimed. And the person at the center of the crisis remains strangely unchanged, still needing, still drawing you back in. It is not because they do not care. It is because their pattern has become the only way they know how to stay connected. The wise person does not turn cold. They simply learn the difference between standing beside someone in difficulty and standing in for them entirely. They protect their own ground so they can actually be useful when the moment truly demands it. We have moved through flattery, through loose tongues, through rushed timing, through polished reflection. Now we arrive at the fifth type, the one that touches the deepest nerve because it lives so close to our own vulnerabilities. Those who carry perpetual crisis as their primary language of connection. There is an ancient understanding that true strength does not advertise its wounds for sympathy. It carries them with composure until the moment action is required. In our daily lives, the fifth type does the opposite. Every interaction eventually circles back to their latest storm: the unfair boss, the unreliable family, the financial pressure that never quite resolves, the emotional weight they cannot seem to set down. They draw you in not with praise or mirroring, but with the quiet gravity of someone who needs you to witness their struggle. And because you are human, you respond with concern, with advice, with presence. The psychology runs deep. Some people have learned that their pain grants them attention, loyalty, even a form of power. By keeping the crisis alive, they keep others invested. It is not always conscious manipulation. Often it is simply a habit formed over years, a way of relating that has replaced genuine exchange. Yet the effect is the same. Closeness becomes a one-way current. You meet them in family ties that have grown heavy over time, in long friendships that began in shared hardship, or in the workplace where one colleague's endless emergencies slowly consume the emotional bandwidth of the team. In marriage or partnership, it can appear as the person whose difficulties always seem to eclipse your own, so that your role is forever the supporter, never the supported. This is where most people get it wrong. They mistake compassion for obligation. They believe that loyalty means absorbing the weight indefinitely. They do not notice the slow erosion of their own energy, their own clarity, their own capacity to pursue what matters to them. The consequence is not sudden betrayal, but gradual disappearance of your time, your focus, your sense of self. You wake up one day and realize you have been living someone else's storm for so long that your own life has grown quiet around you. Opportunities passed because you were busy helping. Relationships with others thinned because your attention was claimed. And the person at the center of the crisis remains strangely unchanged, still needing, still drawing you back in. It is not because they do not care. It is because their pattern has become the only way they know how to stay connected. The wise person does not turn cold. They simply learn the difference between standing beside someone in difficulty and standing in for them entirely. They protect their own ground so they can actually be useful when the moment truly demands it. Now let us bring this down from philosophy into the texture of lived reality. The late-night texts that pull you from your own rest. The family dinners dominated by one person's grievances. The workplace where your quiet ambition is quietly sidelined because you are always the one handling someone else's fire. The cost is not abstract. It is measured in the years you did not fully live, the relationships you could not nurture because your energy was spoken for, the version of yourself that grew smaller while trying to hold everyone else together. In the end, misjudging these patterns does not just cost you opportunities. It can cost you the quiet clarity that makes life feel like your own. So what truly reveals a fake person? It is not the dramatic flaw or the single lie. It is the consistent pattern that drains rather than builds, that performs closeness without the discipline to sustain it. A wise person watches for the one who cannot wait, who cannot hold a confidence, who flatters without foundation, who mirrors without substance, or who needs without reciprocity. These are not villains in a story. They are simply human beings operating from their own instincts and habits. The danger lies in our refusal to see the pattern for what it is. Why do so many people mistake performance for sincerity? Because we want connection. We crave the warmth of being understood, the relief of being needed, the illusion of being safe. Our desire blinds us to the timing, the restraint, the self-control that true character always reveals over time. The mature person is not a saint, not perfect, not free of their own flaws. They are simply someone who has learned what matters. They know what to protect: their time, their peace, their inner compass. They know what to let go of: relationships that demand everything and return nothing of substance. They know when to wait, until trust has been proven by seasons, not by words. And they know when to act, when the pattern is clear and the cost of staying close has become too high. Look at reality for what it is. Human nature has not changed. Desire, fear, ambition, and the need for connection still drive every quiet transaction between people. The difference lies in who sees the mechanism and who lets it run unchecked. Thank you for staying with me until the end. These reflections are not meant to make you suspicious of every hand extended. They are meant to sharpen your sight so that the hands you do take are the ones that truly belong in your life. This has been Guguzi Strategic Wisdom. I'm David Welbeck, the writer behind these videos. I'll see you in the next one. If these ideas landed with you, if they stirred a memory or clarified a situation you are living right now, consider subscribing if you have not already. Share the video with someone whose path might be lighter for having heard it. And if you feel moved, leave a comment about your own thoughts or experience. Your reflections keep this conversation alive. Until then, guard your clarity, respect the timing, and walk wisely.